So imagine knowing exactly what the weather will be like over your house on just a random Tuesday.
Like down to the exact temperature.
Yeah, exactly. The exact temperature, the exact minute the rain starts, the wind speed. But a full 5 years from now.
Wow, that is quite the forecast.
Right. Now imagine taking that level of flawless, long-term predictive certainty and applying it not to the sky, but to the microscopic networks of neurons inside your own brain.
I mean, that changes the entire paradigm of how we live, honestly, because usually when we interact with the world, we operate on this very strict, comforting chain of command, action, then reaction.
You feel a raindrop, you open your umbrella.
Exactly, you feel a symptom, you go to the doctor. We navigate reality, basically, by waiting for a signal and then responding to it.
But looking through the stack of sources we are diving into today, this incredibly dense batch of artificial intelligence updates from March 27, 2026, that entire reactive paradigm is just being dismantled.
Completely dismantled.
And for you listening, I know it is so easy to feel overwhelmed by the daily flood of AI headlines. It can feel like just disjointed barrage of tech updates.
Oh, for sure. It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. But our mission for this deep dive is to cut through that noise and reveal the actual architecture of what is happening. We are looking at a fundamental structural shift today.
Because AI is stepping out of that role of being a reactive tool.
Right, like a fancy calculator where you just punch in a prompt and get an answer. It's becoming an omnipresent, predictive partner. We are going to explore how these systems are actively optimizing our reality from the cellular level of our bodies all the way up to the global flow of commerce.
We are witnessing the transition from diagnosing the present to literally mapping the future. The algorithms we are examining today are essentially sensing the atmospheric pressure dropping hundreds of miles away.
And they are handing you the umbrella before you even think to look at the clouds.
Exactly. That is the perfect way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our first source takes this idea of mapping the future to the most intimate biological level possible.
Yeah, the Alzheimer's development.
Right. We are looking at a massive development in AI healthcare. Researchers have unveiled a new AI model trained on hundreds of thousands of historical brain scans that can identify the biological indicators of Alzheimer's up to 5 years before a single clinical symptom ever manifests.
5 years. That is just staggering.
5 years. It's like a weather forecast for the brain, spotting the storm forming miles off the coast before a single drop of rain falls.
And to understand the gravity of that 5-year window, we really have to look at the mechanical failure of traditional neurology. Historically, diagnosing Alzheimer's relies on the observation of clinical symptoms.
Like the subtle memory lapses or disorientation.
Right, the behavioral shifts. But the problem is, by the time a patient or their family actually notices those symptoms, significant, irreversible structural damage has already occurred in the brain. The physical networks have already deteriorated.
So going back to that weather analogy, the hurricane hasn't just formed, it has already made landfall.
And it is actively tearing the roofs off the houses, yeah. Traditional medicine at that stage is really just disaster management.
You're just boarding up the windows and trying to make the patient comfortable while the storm rages.
Right, the intervention is entirely reactive, and the reason for that reactivity is just a limitation in human biology.
Wait, what do you mean by human biology? Like the doctor's biology?
Yeah, exactly. A human radiologist, no matter how brilliant or experienced, is looking at an MRI or a PET scan for visible anomalies. They are looking for noticeable atrophy or the visible accumulation of amyloid plaques and tau tangles.
Oh, I see. The human eye requires a certain threshold of physical change to actually recognize a pattern.
Exactly. But the machine learning model bypasses that entirely. It breaks the brain scan down into millions of individual pixels and mathematical weights. It isn't looking for a visible clump of plaque.
So what is it looking for then?
It is analyzing infinitesimal shifts in tissue density, microgradients of fluid, and really complex structural relationships across different regions of the brain simultaneously.
Wow.
Yeah, and it correlates these microscopic data points against the hundreds of thousands of scans in its training data. It finds hidden mathematical variables that reliably precede the physical disease by half a decade.
It is seeing the mathematical whisper of the disease long before it becomes a physical shout.
That is a great way to put it. And if you have a 5-year head start, the entire fundamental goal of the medical field just pivots.
Because you aren't managing inevitable cognitive decline anymore.
Right. You are proactively intervening while the brain's neural network is still entirely robust and healthy. You can implement neuroprotective therapies, aggressive lifestyle interventions, clinical trials years before the damage begins.
It gives families the one resource that degenerative diseases usually steal, which is time.
Exactly. It preserves the quality of life by altering the trajectory of the physical decline.
So if we take that exact same predictive power, that ability to ingest massive amounts of data to forecast a biological outcome, and we zoom in from a 5-year macro horizon to our minute-by-minute everyday lives, the implications get even wilder.
They really do. This brings us to our second source.
Right, transitioning us from the long-term health of the brain directly to the real-time rhythm of the heart.
We are moving from deep, long-term cognitive forecasting to the immediate physiological data streams of the human body.
We have a new AI-powered diagnostic platform that's making waves in cardiovascular care. It continuously analyzes a patient's streaming health data, specifically honing in on the nuanced fluctuations in heart rate variability, blood pressure, and blood oxygen levels.
And the goal is to predict the immediate likelihood of heart-related issues.
Yes, but it goes a massive step further than just ringing an alarm bell. It uses that continuous stream to provide hyper-personalized dynamic health recommendations designed to actively head off heart attacks and strokes in high-risk individuals.
What's fascinating here is that this development forces us to confront a really uncomfortable truth about how public health advice has always operated.
Oh.
How so?
Well, for the last century, medical advice has been governed by the law of averages. It is all population-level statistics.
Like the classic generic doctor's speech. You know, eat your leafy greens, sleep 8 hours a night, keep your sodium low, and do 30 minutes of moderate cardio.
Right. It is statistically true for the average human, but nobody is a perfectly average human.
That's very true.
Your specific cardiovascular system, your genetic predispositions, and your metabolic rate react to a spike in cortisol or a lack of sleep very differently than mine do.
So this is where I want to push on the implications of this.
Yeah.
Because if an AI is constantly analyzing my unique real-time physiological data, mapping my specific blood pressure trends against my specific heart rate variability over the last 48 hours.
Right. Does this mean the end of generic eat your vegetables health advice? Like, it seems we are approaching a reality where that generic standard advice might actually be proven wrong for certain individuals.
I mean, absolutely.
Like, my watch might tell me, given your microdata right now, a 30-minute run is actually going to spike your risk of an event. You specifically need to eat a handful of almonds and sit in a dark room for 12 minutes.
That is the exact trajectory we're on. This is the dawn of true, granular, personalized medicine. The AI isn't just a passive heart rate monitor strapped to your wrist.
It's an active preventative partner.
Exactly. It maps your real-time continuous data against its vast predictive models. The system essentially calculates that when we observe this exact sequence of heart rate variability dropping while blood pressure subtly climbs, in an individual with this specific metabolic profile, a cardiac event becomes statistically probable within the next 72 hours.
Wow. It connects cause and effect on a microscopic, individualized level that a human doctor, seeing you once a year for a physical, could never possibly track.
Right. A doctor gets a snapshot of your health. The AI has a continuous high-definition movie.
That's a great analogy.
And by dynamically adjusting your behavioral recommendations based on what your internal systems are doing in real time, it completely revolutionizes cardiovascular care. It shifts the burden of health from generic, retroactive treatments to dynamic, proactive prevention.
Okay, let's scale this mechanism up. Because predicting the unpredictable isn't just about scaling down to the microscopic data inside our individual bodies.
No, not at all.
If an algorithm can predict a localized heart attack based on the invisible flow of blood and oxygen, it can apply that exact same mathematical logic to predict global disruptions based on the flow of goods and raw materials. We are moving from the human circulatory system to the massive circulatory system of global business.
The parallels are striking, especially when we look at the third source regarding next-generation supply chain logistics.
Right. Tech giant XYZ Corporation has just rolled out an enormous AI-driven platform. Its core function is using machine learning algorithms to ingest and analyze real-time, unstructured data to optimize global supply chains.
And it accurately predicts consumer demand and proactively manages inventory routing across the globe.
Exactly. The source emphasizes that this level of predictive routing is becoming strictly essential for any kind of resilience against ongoing global disruptions.
The necessity of this comes from the sheer fragility of global supply chains, which, we've all witnessed recently.
Oh, absolutely. The bare shelves.
Yeah. These networks are impossibly complex and interdependent. A minor labor strike at a single port in Southeast Asia, combined with a sudden spike in the cost of raw lithium, can trigger a cascading mathematical failure.
And that results in a total shortage of consumer electronics on the shelves in Chicago 3 months later.
Exactly, it's a domino effect.
I always used to picture supply chain management like a massive high-speed game of global Tetris. You have these shipping containers falling down the screen, and human logistics managers are frantically trying to rotate them and slot them into the right ports and warehouses before the screen fills up and everything crashes.
Right, the Tetris analogy captures the anxiety of the old system perfectly, but the new AI models operate more like a chess grandmaster.
A grandmaster.
Yeah, a grandmaster isn't just reacting to the piece you just moved. They have calculated 14 moves ahead based on your historical playstyle, the current tension on the board, and the mathematical probabilities of every possible counter move.
Whereas traditional supply chain management was entirely reactive. You look at what sold out last quarter, and you order more for this quarter.
Exactly. You are driving using the rearview mirror. You are assuming the future will look exactly like the past.
But the future rarely does.
Never does. These new machine learning algorithms don't just look at past sales spreadsheets. They are ingesting massive amounts of unstructured real-time data from seemingly disconnected sources.
Like what kind of sources?
Well, they are parsing localized weather forecasts in major shipping straits. They are analyzing the text of regional financial earnings reports.
Wow, even text reports.
Yeah. They are scanning social media for shifts in consumer sentiment. They are even tracking the real-time GPS speeds of freight trucks on highways in Germany.
So the AI is finding those hidden variables again.
Exactly.
A human logistics manager cannot physically correlate a typhoon in the Pacific, a copper shortage in Chile, and a trending video on social media to realize that there is going to be a massive spike in demand for a specific appliance in Ohio next week.
But the algorithm can. It calculates the mathematical probability of that demand spike and proactively routes the inventory to Ohio before the consumer even knows they want the appliance.
That is wild.
By anticipating demand rather than reacting to shortages, the system grants businesses genuine adaptability. This eliminates the exorbitant costs of emergency air freight shipping or warehousing massive amounts of dead stock.
More importantly, it insulates the broader global economy from shocks.
Exactly. When a system can accurately predict and route around damage before the damage occurs, you build a resilient infrastructure that bends instead of breaking.
Okay, so we have AI scanning the microscopic tissue of our brains years in advance. We have it monitoring the real-time beats of our hearts to dynamically alter our diets. And we have it invisibly managing the massive global fleet of cargo ships to ensure products arrive before a shortage even hits the news.
It's everywhere.
It is. That brings us to the final piece of this puzzle, the human interface. Because if these hyper-advanced predictive systems are managing the massive, invisible back end of global commerce, how do everyday consumers actually interact with them?
This takes us from the invisible backend straight to the front lines of e-commerce, which is the focus of our final source.
Right. A leading e-commerce company has launched a next-generation AI chatbot to handle customer service. The report notes that this bot answers inquiries with unprecedented accuracy, but the defining feature is that it constantly learns from each interaction to refine its future responses.
And it successfully handles highly complex, multi-part queries with human-like conversational nuance.
Yeah, and the ultimate result, according to the source, is that it frees up human agents to focus on more complex, nuanced tasks. But I have to play the skeptic here.
Go for it.
Because the trauma of bad automated customer service is a universal human experience.
Oh, we've all been there.
We have all typed a desperate, complicated problem into a chat window, only to have the bot instantly reply with a robotic, copy-pasted link to an FAQ page that doesn't help at all. We have all screamed, "Representative," into our phones.
Repeatedly, yes.
So how is this new system genuinely different from the frustrating rigid bots we have all learned to hate?
The frustration is completely justified. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the difference between the bots of the past and the large language models of today is the difference between a rigid flowchart and a fluid semantic learning entity.
Okay, let's break down that mechanism.
Yeah.
How does a flowchart bot actually fail?
Well, old systems were built on decision trees. They were explicitly programmed with scripts. So if the customer types the word return, the system is programmed to trigger response Y, which is the return policy link. The system doesn't actually know what a return is, it just recognizes the keyword.
And the moment a customer's problem falls outside of those neatly pre-programmed branches, The logic breaks down, the bot loops its responses, and the customer is left furious.
Exactly.
So let's say I have a nightmare scenario. I order 3 blue shirts and 1 red one. The red one comes in a size too small, and one of the blue ones has a tear in the sleeve. I used a one-time promotional code for the whole order, and I want to exchange just the torn blue shirt and the small red shirt for different sizes without losing the financial discount I applied to the whole cart.
That is a nightmare scenario. A flowchart bot sees the words exchange and torn and sends you a generic link about damaged goods, effectively ignoring 90% of your actual problem.
But the large language model approaches it differently.
Completely differently. It doesn't look for keywords. It parses the semantic intent behind your entire paragraph. It actually understands the relationship between the items, the sizes, the concept of a one-time promotional code, and your desired outcome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it can then interface directly with the company's back-end inventory, perhaps even the predictive supply chain system we just discussed, to verify stock, calculate the prorated discount, and process that complex multi-item exchange in real time, all while conversing with you in natural, empathetic language.
And because it is a learning entity, every time it encounters a new colloquialism or a bizarre edge case problem, it integrates that logic, becoming smarter for the next user.
Exactly.
But wait, if the machine is now fully capable of handling that wildly complex multi-part logistics problem, doesn't that mean the human customer service agent's job actually becomes significantly harder?
How do you mean?
Well, if the AI is handling the 80% of volume that is complex but ultimately routine, the human is only ever getting the 20% of calls that are total disasters.
Ah, I see. Well, it actually forces a profound evolution in the role of the human worker. The source refers to this as a symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic.
Yes. The AI acts as an incredibly efficient frontline filter. By stripping away the immense volume of data entry and routine logistics tasks, the human job shifts away from manual database querying and moves entirely toward high empathy, high stakes problem solving.
So the human basically becomes a specialized negotiator.
Exactly. The human agents are reserved for cases that require deep emotional intelligence, nuanced judgment calls, or complex apologies that a machine simply cannot authentically provide.
That makes sense.
The machine stops being a frustrating wall designed to deflect you from getting help and becomes a highly capable assistant. It ensures that when you finally do need to speak to a human, that human isn't exhausted from processing endless returns.
They actually have the cognitive bandwidth to handle your unique crisis.
Exactly right.
Man, when you step back and look at the entire landscape we have mapped out from these March 27, 2026 updates, the sheer scale of the transformation is just staggering.
It really is. I mean, we started at the microscopic level with AI models analyzing the infinitesimal gradients of brain tissue to spot Alzheimer's 5 years before the physical storm hits, fundamentally shifting neurology from managing damage to preserving the physical network.
Then we examined the cardiovascular system, where continuous streaming data analysis is dismantling the law of averages in public health. It is moving us toward hyper-specific, real-time behavioral recommendations tailored exactly to your unique physiological baseline.
From there, we scaled up to the macro level, watching AI act as a grandmaster in global supply chains, analyzing weather patterns and economic sentiment to predict consumer demand before it materializes, keeping the global economy insulated from unpredictable shocks.
And finally, we brought it right back down to your laptop screen, where advanced language models are evolving from rigid, frustrating roadblocks into dynamic problem solvers that actually elevate the necessity of human empathy in the workforce. Across every single domain, from the synapses in your brain to the shipping lanes of the Pacific Ocean, the underlying pattern is undeniable. Artificial intelligence has entirely shed its identity as a basic, reactive tool. It has become an omnipresent, predictive partner.
It is the ultimate societal shift from reaction to anticipation.
Yeah, anticipation.
And that leads to a question I want to pose directly to you listening right now. Take a moment and mentally scan your own life, your daily workflows, your routines.
Where are you currently just reacting to the storm?
Right. Where are you sitting around waiting for the symptom to appear, or the supply chain to break, or the problem to manifest before you take action? Because given the sheer velocity of the trajectory we have explored today, it is highly worth asking yourself, where else in your life could you fundamentally benefit from a system that mathematically predicts your needs before they even arise?
It is an incredible concept to wrap your head around, a perfectly optimized predictive reality. But as I consider this omnipresent predictive partner, I keep coming back to a flip side that wasn't explicitly in the sources, but feels like the inevitable next step.
I can feel the philosophical mind bender coming.
You know it. We started this deep dive talking about the ultimate weather forecast, knowing the storm is coming years before it rains.
Yeah.
It is undeniably miraculous to predict a degenerative health issue, and it's incredibly efficient to predict global supply chain demands and complex consumer questions.
Absolutely.
But here's a final thought to chew on as you go about the rest of your day. If these algorithms are getting so unimaginably precise at predicting our biological failures, our economic vulnerabilities, and our consumer desires based on our hidden data patterns,
Yeah.
what happens when they start predicting what we want before we even consciously know we want it?
Yeah.
Like, if an AI successfully maps out your optimal daily routine, your perfect nutritional intake, your exact media preferences, and your ideal purchases, and it just hands them to you proactively without you ever having to ask.
It's doing everything for you.
Right. Could perfect, frictionless AI prediction eventually remove the element of human spontaneity entirely? Do we eventually lose the profound, chaotic joy of the unexpected when the umbrella is always placed in our hand right before the first drop of rain falls? Something to think about.